I call the Honourable Member Eugenie Shage. Tanakwe.
Tanakwe, Mr Speaker, and I'm pleased to take a short call on the Waitaki District Council Reserves and Other Land Empowering Bill. And I've been pleased to be a member of the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, which, as Nikki Kay noted, has worked very diligently on this bill, and grateful to Mr Parker for his explanation of the history of the Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Bill, because it was very puzzling as a new member to see that there were two pieces of legislation which had gone through different select committees dealing with the same piece of land. The Green Party, like the Select Committee, has been diligent on the bill. Our co-leader Matiria Ture visited the site at Lookout Point, which for members who haven't been there is this piece of land at Forrester Heights, and talked with the locals who were concerned about its future status, and some of those people made submissions to the Select Committee. The Green Party's position was to support this bill at its first reading to Select Committee, and that's because it fixes historical clerical errors in relation to the legal status of two areas of land which continue to be uncontroversial. But based on public submissions to Select Committee and strong community concerns about the proposed sale of Lookout Point by the Council and the inadequate consultation that the Council did in relation to its proposed subdivision, we will now be opposing the bill unless there is support for the supplementary order paper 150, which is in my name. And that SOP seeks to delete Clause 7, which is the substantive clause in relation to Lookout Point, and to make consequential changes to the bill. Mr Speaker, the uncontroversial clauses in the bill are in relation to the reserve status of land with a former caretaker's cottage on it, which is associated with the Palmerston Showgrounds in North Otago, and another small lot in Oamaru. And because the Council sold these lots when it didn't have the power to sell them, the bill regularises that by revoking the reserve status. And it was those mistakes in the purported sale of the properties which the Council thought that it owned, but was actually Crown-owned reserve, has obviously got implications for the current owners of the land, and so current owners and occupiers, and obviously should be resolved. So we're supportive of those clauses which clear up those ownership issues for the current landholders. But it's Clause 7 which is problematic, because that is seeking to clarify the status of the Forrester Heights area of Lookout Point, and that's endowment, as to be endowment land held by the Waitaki District Council. And as endowment land, it would be able to be sold by the Council for this subdivision at Forrester Heights, and the Council would use the funds, I understand, to promote the restoration of the Oamaru Opera House and the Art Gallery. But of course that was the issue that attracted quite substantial submissions, and as Maggie Barry has noted, quite weighty submissions to the Select Committee because of community concern. Certainly using the funds for the Opera House and the Art Gallery is very worthy, but so is the retention of land in public ownership, which the community values for recreation, for walking, for the fact that it is a backdrop to the town, that it's got sweeping views from Cape Wombrau out over the harbour and the town. So that's why we have changed our status on the bill and aren't supportive of it being endowment land for council purposes. And that's largely because of the lack of consultation by the council. And submitters' evidence was that the council hadn't consulted properly when it undertook the application for a subdivision, and that in fact it had granted itself a resource consent for the subdivision without that consent being publicly notified under the Resource Management Act and without appointing external commissioners to consider the application. So there was no opportunity for the public to get involved under the Resource Management Act processes and give their views to Council on the potential impacts of the subdivision and on the value of that land to the public. And I think that is partly why there has been such strong community concern, because there hasn't been a legitimate avenue for that to be expressed through the due legal process. And then when the subdivision consent for Forrester Heights was due to lapse because it hadn't been implemented, the Council extended the term of extended the lapsing period again without that being publicly notified. And as other members have noted, the land is significant because of its sweeping coastal views, because of its use for recreation, because the Little Blue Penguin colony is at the base of the cliffs, and because of the limestone fossils and the use of the area by mowers in the past. So the community didn't get a chance through the RMA process to highlight all of these values and to point out to the Council that that would be affected by the subdivision. And as one submitter, Helen Stead, who was a former Waitaki District Councillor, said, and I quote, "WDC action by bypassing formal local government planning process in favour of asking central government to make decisions over local land use without first giving local residents an opportunity to comment is unacceptable. Oamaru and Waitaki District residents and ratepayers have not been given the chance to either submit on revoking the reserve status or the non-notified consent granting approval for development and sale of the land," end quote. And certainly we were given assurances by the Mayor of the Council that the subdivision signs would be removed, but I am not aware of the actual resource consent for subdivision having been withdrawn by the District Council, so that means they continue to have the legal right to proceed with the subdivision if this bill goes through and if the land becomes endowment land that the Council can then on-sell. And as other members of the House have noted, there has been quite considerable evidence, historical evidence by submitters on the use of the land, and it was photographs like this one which shows the 1890s Arbor Day celebrations, and the fact that the reserve has been treated as, or the land has been treated as if it were public reserve for more than a century. And it was not only these Arbor Day celebrations, the fact that trees were planted there, but just the public use of the area as well. So there is strong public support for the land remaining in council ownership, and there was evidence provided by Mr Monks that the initial decision to vest the land as a reserve was not made in error, and the evidence he gave was the way the land had been treated by the Crown and local council since 1862, and of course it was recognised and designated as a reserve in the district plan until 2005 when the council changed that designation. So certainly understand that the council may well choose to reconsider whether the subdivision development would proceed, but it still has the resource consent which would allow it to do that, and that's why the Green Party is opposing the bill unless the SOP 150 to delete clause 7 as it applies to Lookout Point is passed, because there's been an inadequate process, inadequate consultation by council with the community, and the bill would essentially legitimise that and create another wrong by allowing the land to be sold. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
I call Andrew